Okay, we're live once again on Friday night in front of the Northern Neck Regional Jail. It is April 21st, 2023, and this is day 834 of the first arrests after January 6th. So with that, we'll get started. We've got a usual group here of supporters, and we'll start with the prayer, and then we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance, and we'll kick into it. All right. Heavenly Father, thank you for this beautiful day. Thank you for the devoted patriots that continue to come here in support of these men that are no longer here. Thank goodness the J6ers are gone, but we know that there are other people here that need our thoughts and prayers and support. So God, look over them, help them to find a way to get through this period in their lives and hopefully turn things around into a better day. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, well, we're hoping that we're going to have a few more callers this time. We tried to get the word out so that some of these folks can give us a ring. We've got our usual folks that do. But as before, I want to man and one woman that was here in this facility because of the J6 events. And if I've missed anyone, please let me know. But I think this is a fairly complete list. So starting in alphabetical order by first name: Adam Ladae Jackson, Albuquerque Head, Andrew Quentin Taki, Barry Ramey, Brandon Fellows, Brian Jackson, Chris Quaglin, Daniel Rodriguez, Daryl Neely, Ethan Nordine, Jeffrey Sills, Howard Adams, Howard Richardson, Israel Easterday, James Grant, Jeffrey Brown, Jonathan Manafo, Hosea Kenyon, Justin David Jersey, Cashley Kelly, Kyle Young, Mahala Pryor, Mark Mazza, Marcus Malley, Mason Corson, Mitchell Todd Gardner, Nicholas Brockhoff, Nicholas Lagerand, Patrick McCaughey, Ricky Wilden, Robert Morse, Ronald Sandlin, Ronnie Presley, Ryan Sampsell, Samuel Lazar, Tim Boehner, Troy Sargent, William Rogan Reed, and Zachary Jordan Alam. So last week there was a jail board meeting that was not held here at the normal location. It was held in Gloucester, which is one of the 4 counties that support this jail. And some of our members attempted to participate in that public meeting. We hear that some were turned away. We were able to attend. One lady who's been a member of our vigil out here on a regular basis, not a J6 related relative, but her son is here for various reasons, and he's been having some very difficult times getting his medications. And so she has filled out a stack full of complaint forms and tried to deliver those to the jail board meeting. However, my understanding is they would not accept them. I need to confirm that, but she's been rather vocal at the last few board meetings, and they seem to be wanting to silence her. So we need to follow up on that. And that brings me to something that's fairly hot news right now as of today. This came through another one of our great patriots who is very closely monitoring and emailing and writing to these guys and talking to them all the time. And this is a message that was put out by Nnrj. Nnrj is in Lewisburg Federal Penitentiary now. Andrew was here for quite a while, and I believe that, yeah, he was moved out in December, just before Christmas last year. So a lot of the guys that are up in Lewisburg are feeling much better about that location, but it's still jail, you know, it's still a prison, and they still have issues with getting their health care. From Andrew. And I'll just read it verbatim. Sorry for sending this, as it may not pertain to all those attached here, but all CC'd on this email are aware of my fight to get my medical care at USP Lewisburg. I am sending this out as a written record so that there are more than just myself and my counselor that know about this major issue that happened today, 4/20/23. All right, so yesterday. I was informed on 4/12 that I would be having blood tests drawn on 4/18 to evaluate the levels of my hormones. Keep in mind, this will have only been my third time to have testing done on an issue that has been going on since my incarceration. This is an unacceptable pattern for testing and is being used to cover up the maltreatment. I was not given any of the scheduled blood draws, once again showing their utter lack of concern about my important medical needs. Come Thursday, 4/20/23, I was given what was supposed to be a scheduled dose of testosterone by one of the EMT paramedics they have working here during morning pill line at about 6:20 a.m. That was pill line. The staff member's name is not known to me at this time, but I will update it as soon as I find out. Around 12 noon, I was called to the counselor's office, and I'm met by Dr. Ettinger, the same doctor at the center of my healthcare debacle. Testosterone, but was actually given another inmate's estrogen. He then tries to explain away the absurdity of the situation. He tries to make me seem like there's nothing wrong and that it will actually help my testosterone levels increase. They then take me to medical to give me my medication that I watched them draw from a vial with my prescription on the bottle. He refused to order estrogen blockers to give me while the wrong chemical wreaks havoc on my body. Sorry, folks. All right, continuing on with Nnrj. I also called the doctor out on his lies to the court in his January 27th, 23 filing to the court about me being a steroid abuser and used steroids for years, all with no evidence of any of these claims, and try to figure out why he thought he had to defame me in the eyes of the court. He says he had to push back on my medical request forms as they become record. The same medical request forms they constantly ignore and of which I get no relief for any of the issues I bring up. What would you do if your doctor legitimately injected you with another patient's medication of which is going to be in your body for long term, and then refused to give you available hormone blockers that could at least lessen the effects of the drug? For how long do I have to suffer this serious malpractice at the hands of my captors? Thank you for reading and keeping a record of this for me, Nnrj, 4/20/23. So that was just unbelievable. But again, we've heard that medical treatment is really, really quite scarce here. From the superintendent's own lips, he says that the doctor comes for 4 hours a month. 4 hours a month. And this is considered a medical facility because they have their own little urgent care clinic, which is really just an area. It's all about the staffing. It's about who they have here. And they use EMTs and other not highly trained folks here. And loved ones of the prisoners that came through here have horror stories about those, the lack of medical treatment. We talked about these things, but Jeffrey Sills, in his beautiful letter that he wrote, talking about how he basically had to put up with MRSA for 6 months when, you know, they just wouldn't even bother to look at him. So anyway, that's keeping an eye on the phone here. So, all right, I'm gonna just take a little pause here, and then I want to read some other things to everyone, and we go from there.
We're
going to try to set up a call here with one of the mothers of the J6er, if she's available. And also we're hoping that John Haynes is going to come, John Haynes of the Northern Neck Sentinel. He may not. If not, we'll try to get him on the phone, but there's a couple of things there that I'd like to get some updates from him. Both John and I have been interviewed recently regarding Nelson Velez of the Virginia Tea Party. He has a little thing he calls a splash of tea and a spot of tea. So they're cool little video segments he does on various topics, and so he dedicated one of them to the J6 situation here at the Northern Neck, and it's about 40 minutes. It's available on Virginia Tea Party, VATP.org. And we're going to try to get it also up on our Northern Neck Sentinel, the Northern Neck Sentinel, and also on the YouTube channel for Northern Neck Patriots. John was interviewed last Sunday by Cowboy Junkie. That's Don and Donna, the husband and wife team that every week they cover the J6 situation. So that's a real good one to try to watch as well. So again, Cowboy Junkies, I think they're going to air that segment on Sunday night, but you can also just go to their website and pull it up and find it. So John did a fantastic job just laying out the whole history of events here and gets into some of the details of what we consider to be lack of sufficient the lack of respect, basically, that this jail board is showing to the public who's asked questions about what's going on in here, and they're pretty much just hoping that we will go away. But we're not. We're going to stay here until we get some answers and we get some people to be held accountable.
What did I say? Oh.
Thanks, I was corrected. Cowboy Logic. Cowboy Junkies is a band. So, that must have been in my head. Don't go there. Good music. Thanks for the correction. Cowboy Logic.
It's been one of those days. I think it's a full moon tonight.
Yeah.
It did look like a good band, though. Yeah.
I wonder if he was just released. They've been sitting there for a long time. The kid just came out and got in the back.
That's why they have those.
Yeah.
Maybe he'd like to give his.
Do you want to give any updates on Jeffrey, or do you care to, or I can relay
I
it?
really don't know anything. He's just still sitting in D.C. waiting to be moved, watching movies.
And they're still in the 22 and 2. What do they call it? The lock. They're
Oh no, they're in a pod.
oh,
Yeah, they.
in D.C. Okay, it's Alexandria that they locked him down.
Yeah, they're in basically solitary confinement in Alexandria. Now he did say Josiah is in the pod with them now, because he came up to Jeffrey to thank. He said, "Tell your mom and them thank you for helping Beth." But Beth apparently didn't stick around to see him today. She said she's on her way back west. So, but he did tell Jeff, because Jeffrey was heading toward the pill cart before it left, so he didn't really have time to chat with him or whatever. But he said, told Jeff to tell us to thank us.
That's good.
But now they may get locked down at a certain time at night. I know they get locked down like for a head count during shift change, but then they can do what they want, and they probably get locked. I think they may get locked down like at 10 or 11. I know it's later than at Lewisburg, because Lewisburg is at 9. But they still have their tablets that they can watch movies and stuff.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
I didn't catch the guy that you were reading that letter from. What was his reading?
The letter I read was from Andrew Taki, Taake.
John, it's Tom. Do you want to talk to us here on the live stream a little bit? I assume you're not going to come up. Do you want to fill us in on anything? Or call me back when you're ready. Make sure we get through here.
I'll send you the website.
Okay. That sounds good. Thank you.
So would it be on Rumble? Oh, is it? Let me look this way.
So while we're waiting for a few people to call, I wanted to go back and read a little bit of information. Related to Ryan Samsel. And Ryan Samsel was a gentleman that was allegedly beaten severely, not only in the DC jail, but also in the Northern Neck Regional Jail. And this is a letter from his wife. She says, "I'm speaking on behalf of Ryan and would like to address to all of you some concerns about the abuse that goes on in several of the jails housing J6 political prisoners. A few months after January 30, 2021, when Ryan was arrested, he was detained in the DC Correctional Facility. On March 21, 2021, he was woken up and viciously beaten by the hands of the correctional officers. The COs were clearly directed by a higher power of authority to physically assault Ryan. Shortly after, Ryan was then moved to Virginia and held in 3 different facilities: Rappahannock Regional Jail, CVRJ, which I'm not sure which one that is, and then Central Virginia, thank you, and then Northern Neck Regional Jail here. While in Northern Neck Regional Jail, under the orders of Captain English, Sergeant Taylor, along with a few others, had Ryan cuffed and beaten while they were all yelling and demanding him to get down. So he followed their orders and he got down to the ground. Ryan says, "The night before, they moved me off of J Block for no reason and put me in a cell while visiting with my lawyer. I was ordered to be cuffed in front of the doctor's orders because I was ordered to be cuffed in the front by doctor's orders because of the blood clots in my arm. Sergeant Taylor, who was a captain at the time, refused these doctor's orders, forced me to the ground. Then Captain English stood behind Sergeant Taylor, demanding that he stab me and slam my head into the wall. Then they returned me to the hole, put me into another cell without a camera, but was in view of the block camera, and they came back in and beat me, twisted my hands behind me while being uncuffed, then spit in my face and refused to give me food. Later, I passed out and was forcibly given Narcan, a medication used for someone who was overdosing. The guards told me that I had better say I fell out of bed due to drugs. I was refused yet another hospital trip by the prison doctor, and a second doctor was called and told prison officials not to take me to the hospital until he got there. Dr. Dudley, the second doctor, works at the jail as well as at the local hospital. I called my wife for help and she called my lawyers. Rachel responded. When speaking with Ryan after the assault, it took 3 times to connect with him on the phone because they would cut off the call and would hang up. When we got through to one another, he tried talking, but I could barely understand what he was saying. He was slurring his words and sounded very disoriented. At points of the conversations, he was very quiet and had to yell to get him to talk again. I'm not sure if he was going in and out of consciousness, but what I could make out of his words is he wanted me to help him, call his lawyers, and that he could not breathe, and that they gave him Narcan and call 911. The lawyers were able to talk with Ryan after his assault, and they were having trouble figuring out what he was saying too. I was yelling, saying that he needed to do something, help him, he could be dying. Told Ryan to hang in there, we'll get him help immediately. I called 911 and called the police. The lawyers called U.S. Marshals in the jail. Ryan says, when the ambulance got to the jail, the EMTs were told by the jail that there was no inmate named Ryan Samsel there. At some point, I was brought to the hospital. I had a broken skull and stab marks on my legs. There were pictures of my injuries taken at the hospital, and reports showed that I had no drugs in my system. After going to the hospital and being returned to the jail, my phone privileges were taken away, and my lawyer refused to acquire the film footage as I requested. I was refused mail and even a pen and pencil to document anything that happened from the assault. I was put into complete lockdown. At court, I had told Judge Kelly what had happened you have done. In support of my husband, I'm asking to please help Ryan. This is something that cannot go silent. The abuse needs to stop. Enough is enough. Hey, John. Hey. No, I was just reading the Ryan Sampson. John, can you hear?
Yeah.
All right, so we've got John Haynes, editor of the Northern Neck Sentinel, on the line, and he's going to give us some updates. He's been in constant communication with a lot of these prisoners. And John, I'll just hand it over to you.
All right. It's good to talk to all you folks and keep up the good work. I have had a lot of contact with the detainees, and just today, in fact, I got an email from Stuart Rhodes. I'm sure some of you are familiar with him. He's the founder of the Oath Keepers, and for the so-called insurrection. Anyway, he did try to call, but unfortunately I didn't have the phone in reach. And as you know, when you get a call from them, if you don't pick it up within a few seconds, it cuts off. So anyway, I'm still trying to get back with him. I did also, though, get an email from Nnrj, and then later today talked to him on the phone. I'm sure a lot of you remember Andrew. He used to call into the vigils, and he's the fellow that had his hand broken so badly that could never get it fixed. And by the way, that's still the status of his hand. They're still ignoring it. But the latest episode, he's got severe hormonal problems. He has for several years, and they've never really addressed it since he's been in. Finally, up there in Lewisburg, they did decide that they would give him some hormones. And they finally did so. Now, he was supposed to have 3 blood draws before that to calibrate the dosage, but of course they didn't do any of the 3. So they just went straight to the injection. Well, the next day the doctor called him in and said there's something he needed to tell him. Instead of giving him his prescription for testosterone, they give him someone else's prescription for opposite, and actually, of course, they tried to minimize it and act like it was no big deal and whatever. So he asked them if they would let him give him some blockers to block the effect of the estrogen, and they refused to do so. So, this is what we're up against. I don't think these other facilities are as bad as Northern Neck Regional Jail, but there are problems in all of these facilities. And Tom, stop me anytime if you have any questions.
Actually, I've seen some of that, John, so I'm glad you wrapped it really well, though. Thank you.
Yeah, and Andrew said he'd sent it out to several people, and that's the trick. And as you guys know, anything I've got or that I tell you, you're welcome to use. That's the whole point behind it. And we're starting to get a lot of traction. I think some of you may have already known that I recently taped a couple they're on Real America's Voice Network, which is my favorite network. They also do Steve Bannon, Charlie Kirk. They just got some really great shows on there. And of course, Cowboy Logic, they specialize in J6. In fact, their Easter telecast, the whole 2 hours was nothing but J6. Now, they have come out with my interview on their website and on Rumble. And all you have to do is just, I don't like to use the word Logic, and it'll pull it up. It's in 2 segments. And of course, you'll have to click on both of them. And we go through quite a bit. And of course, Tom already knows this. He was present at the taping. In fact, if it wasn't for him, we'd have probably never gotten it done. But anyway, we went over a lot there. We told them about the MRSA outbreak that had occurred here. And anyway, I'd encourage you to watch it, and I'd encourage you to watch their show on a regular basis. If you're interested in J6, that's the place to go. A couple other things. Robert Morse, I think you guys know exactly who he is. He calls in on a regular basis, a.k.a. Lego Man. He's sentenced the 5th at 10 o'clock up in D.C., and he said that if anybody wanted to attend, he would appreciate it. I know that's kind of a tough slog to get up there that early from this far, but anyway, I promised him I would pass that along. One last thing, here again, you may already know some of this. Debbie, who's been coming to a lot of our vigils and to various meetings and all, I've talked with her recently, and as you know, several months ago this first came up at the vigil. Her son, Daniel Wingo, has very severe epilepsy, and he has to take a powerful type of medication to try to control it. Well, several months ago, I believe it was Brandon Fellows called in and said that they weren't giving him his medicine, and Fellows actually tried to intervene on his behalf. But anyway, long story short, of course, they didn't give it to him. He went into convulsion, and these are very violent convulsions. In the process, he ended up slamming his head up against the bars and injured himself pretty badly. Well, the same thing happened again here, I think approximately a couple weeks ago. And Debbie went to the meeting in Gloucester, and she was telling me earlier today, she tried to pass out some of the flyers, some documentation of her son's abuse to some of the members, and that Hull saw her, told her to quit, and that then they refused to let her speak in public comment. So anyway, I think there may be some legal ramifications regarding the Freedom of Information Act. But either way, it just shows how shoddy this all is. And I would encourage all of you. Hull actually stated to her, according to Debbie, I don't want to see this. If you've got it, just basically drop it off at the jail. Well, we know what happens when you drop off something at the jail. It either gets ignored or thrown in the trash, or they figure out a way to cover up whatever you're complaining about. So what I would encourage is every one of you, look up your representatives, your 3 jail board members, if you live in Gloucester, Westmoreland, Richmond, or Northumberland. Every one of you needs to make a commitment to start sending this stuff to them, whether it's the link in Cowboy Logic, the links that Tom sends out, anything you find, because there are only a few that are receptive to us. We have to inundate them with information so that they cannot keep saying they didn't know about it. I'm sure you're all familiar with the term plausible deniability. Well, that's exactly what this is. They don't want to be able to prove, anyone to be able to prove that they knew this. Sneak of the Biden family. So anyway, I'd encourage you all to stay really involved. Every time I talk to these guys, they're just, they can't express enough how much they appreciate all that you have done for them. And especially the Northern Neck Patriots, but also the breakfast clubs and many other people. I know, I think Tom can verify that when we ran ads for the J6 was trying to raise money, we got letters from people that are not members at all, just they heard about it and wanted to help. So anyway, I would just encourage you to redouble your efforts, and if anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
That's great, John. Thank you. Yeah, I was actually just in the middle of reading the letter from Rachel's counsel, and I was going to get to that Gloucester meeting and the follow-up that came from one of the Gloucester members, and I'm going to try to really get people to encourage people to just take this letter, some form of it, and start sending things. So yeah, that's a great segue into that, John. So thank you.
Yeah, and I think all this is really having a great effect. I know I said last thing, but there's one more last thing. Don't forget, now we have direct access to the Judiciary Committee, and they're the heavy hitter in all this. We're dealing directly with Representative Gates' attorney. We're also working directly with the Trump campaign and others. So don't think this is not getting out, and don't think your efforts are not working, because they are. And I'd like to personally thank every one of you and just encourage you to keep doing what you're doing.
All right, John, thanks. Appreciate what you're doing and getting the word out there, because without the Sentinel and without your efforts, the information that you're gathering from all these folks that are emailing you constantly and calling you constantly, I don't.
Well, what they say, the most effective organizations are the ones where nobody really cares who gets credit. And I think that's the kind of people that we're all working with. And I just want to keep encourage you. What you're doing is working, and God bless each and every one of you.
All right, John, thanks very much. You have a great evening.
You too. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
John Haynes, what a patriot. He's been putting out the Northern Neck Sentinel since 2018, and it's a one-of-a-kind paper. I still haven't found one that I think can match it in terms of its wide variety, but also his hard-hitting coverage of important issues that most conservative people care about. So I want to finish this letter from Rachel Samsel. And where we stopped was right at that point where, again, John just kind of reiterated it. What she was saying is, write to the local courthouse, write to local newspapers, write into the staff at the jail for being unprofessional and abusive to Americans who love freedom and God. Please make sure to support all political prisoners in the jails. Tell them you love them and respect them. Be their voice to bring people together. We are the people who must spread the word. Give all inmates a call-in number. Let all voices be heard. We stand together, not just J6ers, but all who struggle together for freedom. We are one people against big government. This is not a black, white, gay, straight issue. This is the right thing and an honest system where all people are treated fairly for all people. We love you all, Rachel. So that led we've read here at the jail in various pieces. I think some of our members here tonight kind of broke the letter up in a couple of pieces to make sure they could get it into the 3-minute time frame that they give. I think the following meeting, there was a big closed-door session for over an hour where they were debating this and reviewing video footage and so on. And then they let us back in, but they really didn't talk very much about it. Subsequent to that, we started to hear from jail board members saying that Ryan did it to himself. Why would we do something like that to someone? How can you think that of us? That's foolishness. And back to what John mentioned about plausible deniability. So that's what they're trying to do, is to cover it and try to just hope that this all goes away. So again, there's a lot of power in individual citizens. This is a one-page letter that I'm going to read from a lady in Gloucester who picked up the call that I made, or the call for action that I made for people to write their representatives, just as John mentioned a minute ago. So this was written on January 20th, when we were pretty hot and heavy on them over the Ryan Samsel situation. She addressed it to Gloucester County Administrator Carol Steele, Gloucester County Board of Supervisor Kevin Smith, and Gloucester County Sheriff Darrell Warren. All three are members of this jail board. Dear jail board members, you have a responsibility to care for the prisoners incarcerated in the Northern Neck Regional Jail in consequence of your being Gloucester County representatives of that facility. It has come to my attention that allegations of prisoner mistreatment, abuse, and refusal of medical care have been occurring at this facility. These alleged abuses have been made by credible individuals who maintain regular contact with the facility and with prisoners. Interviews are viewable online of the types of abuse suffered. These allegations are serious and not to be ignored, nor explanations accepted from jail authorities without independent investigation. I'm asking that regular periodic updates be addressed by yourself at a public forum, such as at the Board of Supervisors meetings, or online on your website, and in the many sheriff's publications released to the public. Some of the alleged abuses include failure to provide medical care in case of seizures, poor quality and inedible food, commissary items which must be purchased, toilet paper, soap, no religious services for over 2 years, pretrial detainees being held with convicted felons, beatings, punishment for speaking about these abuses, sewage overflows, failure to release commissary funds of transferred prisoners. Personally, I'm ashamed for my county that these issues must be aired, but sunlight is the best antiseptic. Now that jail board members have been made aware of these issues, we fully expect to see swift action towards improvement to the above from management, who is subservient to the jail board. Now that you know, and I know, of these allegations, I expect to see improvements reported. Concerned Gloucester citizen, and she gives her name, but I'm not going to read it. So that's the kind of pressure we need to keep on to these folks, because as every month goes by, as time goes by, that we don't keep it in front of them, that we're not at the jail board meetings, that we're not out here doing the vigils, is lulling them into the feeling that they've gotten away with this, and we're not going to do it. We're not going to let it happen. A thought occurred to me as John was talking about Mr. Wingo's problems with his medications and his mother's attempt to turn in complaint forms. I've got the jail handbook, which I asked for at a jail board meeting, and they provided it to me. And in there, it very clearly states that if an outsider, not a jailed inmate, but if someone else from outside, a complaint, and submits it to the jail, the chain of custody of that complaint transfers from the individual who made it to the individual inmate. So you can make your complaint, but where it goes, you don't know, because it's now no longer between you and the jail, it's between the jail and the inmate. And time again, we've seen they come back with findings of no findings, and that that the issue is just ignored. Kind of makes you wonder if you've got a prisoner in here who's got a loved one who's concerned about him and making some complaints. How do they approach that individual and say, hey, what's this with folks causing a stink? And I'm sure that with the right persuasion, they can get a lot of them just to go back to their cell and be quiet. So it's the mode of operation here. All right, well, unfortunately we haven't gotten any inmate calls yet, so I think we're not going to go the full 2 hours tonight again, but we might try to get someone else here in a moment, so we'll just give it a little bit of time, folks. Thanks.
That was really a good interview you did with Cowboy Logic, or
Nelson.
Nelson. That was really good.
Thanks, Ron. He's a good interviewer because we talked before that too. We talked for probably an hour, and then it was funny because I hadn't heard from them afterwards, and I assumed it was really, really awful that they couldn't use it.
No, that's very good.
I have a couple questions. The meeting, so you're saying that the jail board meeting was open to the public or only to a certain?
So there's a question on the jail board meeting that was held in Gloucester. So every year they have an annual supper meeting where they pick a different locality. We know about that because they were talking about it casually in the jail board meetings, you know, in the months prior to that. And we knew that this time it was going to be in Gloucester, that Gloucester was hosting. We didn't know when it was because they didn't give us those details. They don't share the agenda to the public. And we can get that. We can FOIA. So apparently, the only way we knew that that jail board meeting was going to be in Gloucester was we came here on the regularly scheduled first Wednesday of the month, and there was no one here. And there was a posting on the wall that said that the meeting was going to be the following week in Gloucester. So we heard that some people were actually turned away, told that it was a closed meeting, and then we heard that some people were actually able to be there, including Debbie, who is Mr. Wingo's mom. But it sounded like they were pretty much trying to shut her down and tell her that she had to be quiet. So that's what I know for now, until we get able to talk to some people that actually were there and know more.
I have so many questions.
Before I forget, I wanted to mention the Ryan Samsel incident again. So I submitted a FOIA request to the jail for any information that they had that happened on October 12th of 2021. And about 3 days, maybe 4 days later, 5 days is the requirement by law for a response, they wrote back and said they've researched it and they have no records of that event. So that's very surprising, but that's just one avenue that we'll have to try a different way. But we certainly know that Ryan did go to the hospital that evening. We know that the Richmond County and inquired on him because John FOIA'd that and actually got the call records of when that call was made. So something definitely happened that night, and we just need to find out some more information.
You had said earlier that one of the FOIAs you put in was for the wrong date, and so they set the date. There's nothing there. Then, in response to the correct date, they said there was nothing there too.
Right. Yeah. I saw a white truck and I thought it was Sherry or I know it's not Mary.
Another question. If it was a normal meeting that was run like it was supposed to be done, shouldn't have the dinner meeting have been brought up at the March meeting under like old business? I know why they didn't, because they wouldn't, I mean, just like Nnrj School Board, if they're gonna have, they have weekend meetings and stuff, but it's always brought up that that's where it's going to be.
Yeah, yeah. I think they have to. This is a public. You
Right.
know,
So. I guess there's no written. I don't know what I'm trying to say.
I think John hinted he's looking into it. He mentioned a FOIA problem. I don't know if that refers to meetings. He knows a lot more about FOIA.
It's like they were trying to hide it
Yeah. Yeah.
from the public.
Right, they should post
You know what be reprimanded for doing it. It's almost like
They probably put it like a little ad and classified.
No.
but I think it's really supposed to be mentioned at the meeting and because I know they had mentioned it a long time ago because the lady from Gloucester, they had told her it was her turn, you know, but that's all that was ever said. And I almost really think it was supposed to have been mentioned in Nnrj's meeting,
Right.
place, time, and everything
Right.
for it, and whether it was open, closed, or whatever.
That's her.
Hey,
Like a chair.
Chinese food? Oh, but look, I've got I owe you $20 back because I didn't do a chip run. Okay. Yeah, I might get up there this summer. The chip run.
See, they're going to do anything that they can to confuse and make it so
I
that
know.
you don't show up. But like I was just saying, though, that it's legal. Like, it's enough for them just
And we'll turn it back on if somebody calls, but
Okay.
you know, in a newspaper or something. That's legal.
Right, they met the rule of the law.
Yes, they inform. Yes, exactly. So,
But still, if this meeting